Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. This is the second part of a series of videos explaining how to make a sort of fruit cage or a sort of netted tunnel. Also can be used as a polytunnel if you put polythene rather than netting. So this episode is going to explain how to continue to make the framework so you can put the net over. If you haven't seen the first one, I'd advise you see that first so you can see how it how the first bit goes together. But welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, I hope you can see this. It's a little bit dark in here, but it's absolutely chucking it down at the minute outside, so I've had to retire inside to the shed. So what I'm showing you at the moment is how to connect, basically weld the pipe together. Now this is the neatest and easiest way to do it, and basically all you need is underneath here, as you can see, what I've got is I've just got a normal vise. It's not fixed down or anything, it's just a spare one that I've got. And in there I've got some 2-inch angle iron, which is straight. The reason I'm using this is what you can do is you can sit the pipe in to the angle iron like that, making sure that it's in contact here and also in here, which will make sure that that's aligned with the steel. And then if you do exactly the same on here, you know for a fact that this 11-foot length of pipe and this 11-foot length of pipe will all be in alignment with each other. And what you want to do, just a very quick tip, I know I've explained this before in previous videos, but galvanized steel is great for outside, and it'll save you painting it and all the rest of it. However, when you're welding, you can't weld anything that's galvanized, so what you need to do is linish off the zinc. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've basically linished off the zinc off the steel pipe, so I can basically get a weld in there. Now if you try and weld it with the zinc on there, the weld won't be very strong at all. Now the way to weld pipe, or any plate really, is what you want to do is you want to pull it apart about 1 millimetre or 2. As you can see there, I've got a gap between them, and what you want to do is weld onto that. And basically what you're doing is with the welder you're filling this gap with weld. Now if you do that, you won't get a weld that's proud, you'll get a weld that's sort of flush with the pipe. So that's the easiest way of welding it. So what I'll do is I'll just weld this first part here, and then I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. I'm going to have the welder reasonably high. I'm going to have it on, if you've got a welder like this is a Clark's welder, but basically I'm going to have it on a reasonably low wire feed, about 4.5, and I'm going to have it on power 1, which is not overly powerful, but that's going to give me enough power. Obviously the walls of this pipe aren't tremendously thick, so what I'll do is I'll start to weld with that. If I find I need a little bit more power, what I'll do is I'll turn up the power on at the bottom, or turn the wire speed down a little bit further. But that's my guess at what I'm going to need to weld it. Obviously all I've finished it off with is the angle grinder again, but this time I've got a linishing wheel on there with some sandpaper, and that's going to give you basically the neatest finish on the pipe to get the galvanizing off, the zinc off. So I'll weld this now and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so there's the pipe welded, just there, just this minute finished welding it. I did find that in a couple of places it got a little bit hot. I think the wall of this pipe was quite thin, so you most certainly need to keep the temperature down. Obviously I've got reasonably good penetration there. As you can see, the weld sunk into the pipe. So what I'll do is I'll just wait for that to cool off, and then I'll quickly linish it off. The other quick tip that I will say is if you are going to weld pipe together, weld about 1 inch or so on this side, and then turn the pipe all the way around and weld 1 inch on the other side. And then, because obviously as the pipe expands with the heat, it can cause the pipe to bend a little bit. So if you weld it don't let it get too hot. Weld it here, weld it on the other side. This bit will be cooling off it then, and then basically just come back and do another stitch, other side, another stitch. So do it basically in 6 stitches if you like, going round, and then you'll get a nice straight pipe at the end of it. So I'll linish that off now with a grinding wheel, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. Okay, so there's the pipe finished off. Obviously the weld just there. Just about to see a witness mark there where it's been welded. But that's what it looks like all finished, so that's nice and strong. What I need to do now is weld another piece on the other end there, so I've got a 22-foot length of it. Unfortunately this weather, I need to do that outside. There's just not enough room in the shed to get 22 foot inside the shed. So what I'll do is I'll wait for the weather to brighten up a little bit, and I shall weld the other pipes in exactly the same manner as this, and then I'll start to assemble the sides. So that's the next part to show you. Okay, so the next step, basically what I need to do is cut out 2 lozenges off the end of a piece of pipe, so that when that's jointed up to another pipe like that, it'll sit over the pipe, so I can basically get a nice clean weld all the way around there. Now the way to do this basically is I've drawn a line up the pipe, and then on the other side underneath, exactly opposite, I've drawn another line, and what I'm going to need to do is cut out 2 shapes like this on both sides. You only really need to guess this one, so what I'm going to do then is basically with another toilet roll, I'm going to put that over, I'm going to cut it and put it so it's the right size, and then put that back over, and then from the underneath draw the line on, so from there on in I'll have a template to do the rest. So the first thing I need to do basically is to cut out this side, and then turn the whole thing over and cut the same shape out on the other side, so that when the 2 pipes come together, so one pipe here, one pipe going this way, basically the 2 pipes touch, and I can get a weld all the way around here to get a nice strong joint. The way that I've actually drawn this line round the pipe is basically to put another pipe over the top, obviously lining it up with the line like that, and then looking down on it, down the length of it, to see where the 2 things will likely to touch. Now obviously this is largely guesswork, and you need to do it kind of freehand with a pen, as you know, to get that line. So what I'm going to do now, I've drawn that line, is cut that out with the angle grinder, and then cut up this line round here like that, coming in from this side obviously, to cut out this shape, and then I'll turn the whole thing over and do the same thing on the other side, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. Okay, so now I've cut that shape out, as you can see. That's going to marry up with the pipe. So basically all I've done is cut round the line. I needed to do a little bit of further fettling around here, and basically all you need to do is basically offer up the other pipe like this, like that, and then just see where it's touching, and then just keep cutting little bits off. And this is why you always do like a dummy run like this. So as you can see, that's a nice tight fit all the way around, and if you look at it from this angle, as you can see, that will enable me to get a weld round here like that, and be able to you know, make a really nice strong joint. So now I've cut this one. You only really need to guess the first one, and obviously what you need to do is use a piece of pipe which it doesn't matter the length, so you can keep cutting and cutting and cutting until you've got it right, basically, because what you might need to do is to keep taking it back until you've got it absolutely right. Now I've done this, what I'm going to do is basically put a toilet roll over, which I'll show you in a moment. Basically cut the toilet roll in half, and then place it over, and then tape it on so it's nice and tight to the pipe, and then I'm going to draw round this line on the inside and then cut this toilet roll out to the right shape. And then all I need to do then to make any more of these joints is basically just put this piece of toilet roll inner over the pipe, and then I can draw around the line, and then I know exactly where to cut on the next one, and then I can just basically cut to that line. So I'll show you doing that now. Okay, so there's the joint we've just cut, and as you know, that will fit quite nicely onto the end of the pipe, so the pipe will fit in kind of like that, so we can get a nice weld around here. So all we need to do now is replicate this on all of the pieces of pipe which are going to connect to a piece of pipe going the other way. So we've just got a toilet roll here which has been cut in half, sort of lengthways. You can see that. I'll basically just cut it lengthways. Now I'm going to fit that over the pipe like that, and then just temporarily I'm just going to get a little bit of insulation tape just to secure it in place. Like that. Making sure that's nice and square on the pipe. That's it, so that's now nice and tight on the pipe. So all I need to do now is if we get that piece like that, so the joint's at the bottom, all I need to do now is get a pen and then draw around the shape of the pipe. Now obviously I'm showing you a nice simple way of doing it, a nice cheap simple way of doing it, so that you can do it for yourself. But basically all I've done is just drawn around the edge of the pipe with the marker pen, like that. And now if I now take the tape off, okay, so now the cardboard's off, you can see the line that I've drawn inside there. So all I need to do basically is with a pair of scissors just carefully cut around the line, because obviously this is going to be the template that you use. But basically carefully cut around the line, so that when I put this on another piece of pipe now, I'll be able to see exactly what shape it needs to be cut out. So obviously cut to the as you're looking at the right hand side of the line. It's going to go something like that. So now if I put this back onto the pipe, like this, you might need to, again you may need to do a little bit of trimming just to make sure you've got the right shape. Now obviously see, now what you've got is a piece of cardboard which is exactly the same shape. In fact that's not actually 100% symmetrical. Okay, it must have gone that way. So now as you can see we've got a piece of cardboard. I've just pulled it out slightly so you can see the cardboard, but that's just slightly so I'll just turn it around again. It's just slightly bigger than the actual pipe, and it's the same shape as the cut that we've made. So now if I get this piece of cardboard off here like that, and then put another piece of pipe in, what I can do now is basically, in fact it might be slightly too tight, so we'll put it on like this. So if I put this onto here now, like that, make sure it's nice and square. I'm making sure it's square by this far edge here, making sure those two edges go together. Now all I need to do now is with a pen draw around the cardboard like that. I can take the cardboard back off like that, and now there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but that's basically now the shape. I don't know if you can see that, but that's basically the shape that I need to cut out of this pipe, so that if I want to make another joint exactly the same as that, that's basically my template to make all of the edges like that, so I can get the pipes to fit together in that manner. Okay, so just to prove the point, that's the first one we cut, and that's the one that I showed you putting the toilet roll around and making the template. So basically I've put the template on top of this one, as you've seen, and drawn the line round, and I've just very quickly cut that out with the angle grinder. Yep, like that. And now, as you can see, this piece of pipe now will fit straight into that piece there. So all I need to do now to connect these two pieces together would be just to run the welds round there, and I can weld these two pieces together really quickly. So all I need to do now is when I need to join two pieces together at right angles, all I need to do is measure how long the piece of pipe needs to be up to the edge, draw a line there, and then get the toilet roll onto that measurement, like that, and then wrap that around the pipe, and then I can see exactly where I need to cut to make a perfect joint to weld this pipe onto the next one, which will be going this way. Okay, so I'm just about to weld up the first side, and these are the two pieces that I took apart, as you saw in the earlier clips. Now, what I've done is I've aligned it up as best I possibly can just by putting my head down on the floor here and looking up the side of it. Now these pipes are slightly bent, but what I don't want to do is straighten it now, because what that will do is potentially contort the posts here. So what I'm going to do is leave it as is for now, and then I'll straighten that up. But the important thing to note is obviously get it as straight as you possibly can do. I've just propped it up with a few bits of tile here and a piece of wood at the end there, so I know it's in a straight line that way, and in that plane as well it's cut as straight. Now what I've done is, obviously just with the angle grinder, I've just quickly taken off all of the galvanising on here, because what I want to do is weld this together now. Brought this together as close as it'll come, and what I'm going to do now is obviously properly line this up to make sure it's absolutely dead straight. What I'm going to do is just put a piece of metal along there just to make sure that that's straight, and then I'll weld this onto this pipe, and obviously weld through these two holes here to weld that together. So I'll do that first, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so now what I've done is I've welded around the gap there, so as you can see that's nicely and solidly attached. And then on the other side, I'll just turn it over. I've welded into the two holes that we drilled out, and then just quickly linished that over so it's nice and smooth. And I've welded around this bit here, so it's welded this pipe's welded all the way around, and the two spot welds that I drilled out have now been welded. So as you can see, now the side is all together. So what I can do now is do everything with it upright, and I'll show you what's going to happen next. But basically what we need to do is measure up and cut this central post. Now the distance that I'm going to make between this post and the one next to it is going to be 26 inches. The reason for that will become apparent in the next couple of episodes, but basically along each of the sides I'm going to have a solid aluminium plate to stop the wind from damaging the plants. So basically I've got some recycled aluminium which is 30 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is have 26 inches, so I can basically cut off any rough edges or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is measure up from here to 26 inches, and then cut off the shape here as I showed you with the toilet roll earlier, so that the pipe can sit in there. Okay, so now I'm ready to basically put the next pole across, which is the one that we welded together in previous clips. So what I've done is I've measured up from the bottom up 26 inches to there. In the centre, the pipe's going to sit on the middle part, as I say, to strengthen the joint at the bottom there, to make sure that we don't get any scissoring there. So what I've done is I've used the cardboard cutout as I explained, and what I've done is I've marked up to 26 inches, and then marked around where the metal needs to be cut. And at the far end, you probably can't see it, but I've basically put a marking up at 26 inches as well, so I know exactly where the pipe needs to go. So what I'll do now is cut out this part here, clean up the metal here and at the both ends, to make sure that I can weld onto the pipe. around here, so I need to clear off all of the galvanising around here so I can weld straight onto it, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so what I've done now is I've cut off this pipe at 26 inches, and I've cut out the shape so that another pipe can sit in there to form the side, as you can see. And then I've cut out exactly the same shape out of the long length that we welded together in the previous clip here, so that that's now going to join onto the end pieces. So what I'll do is I'll just tack this into place, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's this side almost finished now. So I've welded round here, so that pipe's now firmly fixed onto there. Down this end here, I've welded the pipe obviously the opposite way around, all the way around there. Now, obviously at the other end, I've got to make up this difference in length here. So all I'm going to do here, I've got to make from there to there, is basically the pieces of pipe I cut earlier. That's going to fit into there. Yeah, and then all I'm going to do is basically cut that to length there, and then attach these two pieces of pipe in exactly the same way as I showed you in the previous clip, just by putting some angle line under here and onto here, and then basically welding the two pieces of pipe together there, and then welding that onto there, and then that is pretty much the first side complete. Okay, so we're now doing the far end, and basically what I've done is I've just with a couple of cable ties just to hold it in place, I've put the piece of angle line underneath. Now what that's going to do is basically align this piece of pipe, which is the small piece, with the long piece which is already welded on, and I've just quickly tacked it on there, which is aligned with the 26-inch mark at the bottom. So now all that's aligned, what I can do is weld around this here. Note that I've got the pipes about 1 millimetre or so too small, so I can weld into the gap like I did before. Now as soon as I've welded the top of that and round the top of here, put a few more tacks on there, I can basically remove these two cable ties and take that off, and it'll all hold itself together, and I can just carry on around the weld with that, stitching it like I said before, do an inch and then do an inch underneath, and then an inch here, then an inch, so you're not, because the problem is when you weld the pipe, what will happen is the pipe will actually expand, and what you can do is you can actually generate a kink in the pipe if you're not too careful. So just do a stitch here, and either leave it to cool and then carry on, or do a stitch here, then do a stitch underneath opposite, just to stop it from bending. But what I'll do is I'll weld across the top there, and then weld this one whilst it's cooling down, and I'll come back and finish off the top. Then I can take this out and then weld all the way around the bottom, and that'll be finished. So I'll show you that when I've got it done. Okay, so that's that part welded and flushed off. The reason I've sanded it back is obviously the netting will be going against this pole. So basically I don't want any burrs or any sort of protrusions from here damaging the net which goes on, because obviously that'll, as the wind blows, it may potentially rub on there and sort of, you know, make a hole in it and stuff. So I've just ground that down nice and smooth, and all I've used is a grinding wheel, obviously not a cutting wheel. These are the sort of thicker wheels that you use for grinding. Don't be tempted to use a cutting wheel, because basically the cutting wheel can get that thin it actually shatters, and that's obviously potentially dangerous. And obviously now I've welded round here, all the way around there, obviously the other side as well. So that's all nice and solid on there. So that's basically the first side finished. So what I need to do now, just got a little bit of straightening up of these bottom pipes as I explained before. As soon as I've done that, so that's basically that finished. I just need to duplicate an ideal copy of this to go on the other side of the tunnel. Okay, so that's the two sides done now. These are going to be, you know, a few feet apart, and then obviously the arches are going to go between these two. So these two, I've not quite worked it out yet. They're going to be something like 10 foot, 11 foot apart, and then obviously the arches are going to go over the top. So they're two identical posts. These are slightly longer. I'm going to cut those off when I've worked out how the arches are going to go on. But basically that's been made, you know, exactly the same way as the first one. I basically just welded the pipes together, as I showed you before. All of the joints have been made exactly the same in there, and basically all the bottom as you've seen before. So that's basically the second side made. Okay, so now the two sides are made, I need to start focusing on the actual arch part. Now, these pipes here started off life as a trampoline, and I've just taken the old tunnel apart, and this is basically the two arches that went at each end of that. So what I need to do is basically make a third version of these, if you like. But what I've decided to do is to put two of these on each of the arches, and then I'll make up the middle part for each of the arches. So that's the easiest way for me to make it as identical as possible. The radius of these is 8 feet. So when all of these are together from edge to edge, if it was a whole circle, it would be 8 feet, to give you an idea. So for the new tunnel, basically it's not going to be quite an arch shape. It's going to go up in an arch, and then there's going to be a flat piece along the top, and then it's going to go back down again, you know, to meet the other side. So these parts, if you imagine, are basically, if this is the side piece here, these pieces are basically going to sit in there like that. So if I just come back now, you'll be able to see it's slightly on its side. But if I now rotate that up, you can see that that's going to form the start of the arch. So the first thing to do is to remove these pipes here. I'm just going to basically cut those off with the angle grinder. So I've got 6 pieces of clean pipe. Now obviously the way that these were originally designed is some of them go into other, so obviously that will fit inside this one, and so on. That's how they were originally fitted together. So what I'm going to do is basically cut them all back so they're all the same. So basically what I'm going to end up with is 6 sort of pieces, sort of each is kind of a sixth of a circle, so they're all kind of worth 60 degrees of a circle, if you like. And then what I'll do is I shall make the top part to join 2 of these together. Then what I'm going to do is, rather than connect them together as they were originally, the problem that I found with the last one is because they were connected together, they could actually rotate slightly, and then in the wind it actually starts to bend and twist a little bit. So what I want to do is weld them together so it's an absolute solid structure. So I shall do that, and then I'll show you what they look like once I've finished. So I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden has been some use to you. There will be further episodes explaining how to complete the tunnel, and that'll be coming up very shortly. If there's anything that I've done in this episode or in the previous episode that you're not quite sure about, please do put a comment or a question below, and I'll always get back to you with the answers. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.